Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu meinem Let's Play The Beginner's Guide. Das Spiel wurde mir empfohlen, nachdem ich das Stanley Parable gespielt habe, da es von den gleichen Entwicklern ist. Und ich würde sagen, wir legen einfach mal los und schauen, was da so passiert. Bitte Audio einschalten. Ja, Steuerungscontroller, wie immer.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Wreden. I wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Ein weißer Raum. Achtung. Flüstermaschine aktiv. Sofort evakuieren. Ach, da geschossen. Okay.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
Security call breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately, we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin ship evacuation.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Geil. Okay, die Tür geht nicht auf.
Apparently, this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Oh, danke.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Okay. Hä? What the? Das ist ja
The
cool.
beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Die Vergangenheit lag hinter ihr.
Yup, in this game you can only walk backwards.
Was? Da waren Abgründe. Überall. Die Musik spielt auch.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
Krass. Total verrückt irgendwie. Was steht hier? Ich bin blind. Wenn sie stehen bleibt und sich umsieht, wird es klarer. Aber wenn die Zukunft immer hinter ihr liegt, wie soll sie dann die Kraft finden? Sich
It's a
ihr
short
zu
little
stellen?
thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Oh, das sieht aus wie Slender. Ich hasse das. Du betrittst nun betrete nun.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Ey, das ist so weird, so merkwürdig alles.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Huh?
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, eine ganz lange Treppe.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press the use key on your gamepad, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Auf meinem X stehen 3 Stunden.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
Krass, ey, diese ganzen Texte.
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
Heftig, okay. Ein Spiel, in dem Gegenstand gesammelt werden. Wenn du alle Gegenstände hast, wird das Spiel. Auf die Fische, fertig, los. Okay. Also bis jetzt alles noch entspannt.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it. Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're gonna see it a lot.
Okay. Wieso sind da 3 Punkte? Passiert nichts. Okay.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press the use key on your gamepad, it'll remove all of the walls from this room. How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Ach du Scheiße. Schon wieder das Spiel? Du verlässt nun?
Aha. So this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Okay, März 2009. Oben geblieben ist noch keiner. Okay. Ein Haus. Ein Doppelhaus.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well. The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Ich kann nicht springen, aber ich kann fallen. Ich bin tot. Oder auch nicht. Nee, da komme ich nicht hin. Okay. Also in den Räumen könnte man echt coole Sachen machen.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that. This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Okay. Entweder der Typ war total crazy oder es war einfach nicht seine Zeit. Naja, aber wenn ich mir überlege, Stanley Parable, wie verrückt das Spiel ist, und es ist eigentlich auch nichts außer Gang im Gang mit Gang.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Okay. Oh, schöner Himmel. Hören, sprechen.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the buttons on your gamepad to respond.
So, okay. Ja, ich möchte das jetzt hier. Okay. Ich bin verwirrt. Einfach nur noch verwirrt.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Oh, das sieht aber hübsch aus.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
April 2009 wird geladen. Dieses Spiel ist nicht mehr. Beim Herumlaufen kannst du Notizen hinterlassen. Alle Notizen, die du hier siehst, wurden von anderen Spielern hinterlassen. Netter Raum. Von wegen. Aha.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Erinnert mich so ein bisschen an Dark Souls oder generell an
But it's
diese
ironic, isn't it,
Soulsborne-Spiele.
that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Krass. Nachrichten, wo sie ja alle selbst geschrieben haben.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
Also schon wieder diese
In
drei
each of his
Punkte.
games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on. And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here, to step back and connect the pieces together, to grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Wieder das Licht.
Okay, this one is tough. It's gonna kind of just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Okay. Sieht doch hübsch aus. Bisschen trist, aber hübsch.
See, this is it, the whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Okay. Ach, jetzt hat er die ganzen Möbel rausgenommen. Mhm. Ist aber keine Waschmaschine. Eine Tesla-Spule. Ist aber keine Tesla-Spule. Ach du Scheiße.
There's a bit more to this one, but still, it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake.
Das ist echt weird. Oh, ich kann hier langlaufen.
So, okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Hallo, bitte geh vorwärts. Mit dieser Anleitung kommst du aus diesem Gefängnis heraus. Folge den Anweisungen. Zuerst musst du auf diesem Tisch klicken. Gut, jetzt geh zum Fotorahmen und dreh dich ganz leicht nach rechts. Fotorahmen? Nochmal. Jetzt schalte die Stehlampe in diesem Raum aus und wieder ein. Gut, machen wir. Aus. An. Jetzt geht zum linken Sofa. Verrückt. Ein bisschen. Naja, was ist denn links? Und schließlich berühre noch die Regale. Das ist es. In einem echten Gefängnis ist der Fluchtweg nun frei. Geh zurück zum Anfang und wieder zurück. Dein Gefängnis. Was? Gebracht zu werden? Ach, in dein Gefängnis gebracht zu werden. Entschuldigung. So, dann hier. Zurück.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this, to see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop, that particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Okay. Da ist wieder die Lampe. Häuser. Ich laufe einfach mal geradeaus, um zu sehen, wo wir ankommen. Ich komme klar an der Lampe an, aber... Hallo, wer ist da? Ich bin nachgekommen. Du bist ich? Du warst also auch in diesem Gefängnis gefangen.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
Okay. Ist ja krass, irgendwie total krank. Total verrücktes Spiel.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
Oh.
To me, this environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Putzen.
You'll notice that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
2 Monate hat er dafür gebraucht. Krass. Gehe ich ins Schlafzimmer und mach das Bett. Putzen wir mal die Wanne. Bücher.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful. I know that Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was like grossly happy all the time, just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
Krass. Es wiederholt sich alles immer und immer wieder.
I'm glad he made this. I'm glad he found some peace.
Peace? Ich raste gleich aus.
But, of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
Okay, krass. Schon wieder die Laterne.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
September 2009. Alles, was
This
sie
one
lieben,
gets a
zum
bit
Fortzugspass.
goofy.
Die beruflich zu verbessern, um eine Beziehung zu vertiefen. Hoch, teleportiert. Aha, aha. Ich glaube, ich habe noch nie so ein verwirrendes Spiel gespielt.
About halfway through the game, the perspective shifts.
What? Was?
And you play
ist das?
as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now. I fell pretty hard for this one. I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
Hey, total verrückt irgendwie.
This one took a lot longer than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Ey, ich hab mich erschreckt. Also die Bühne sieht schon Hammer aus. Auch diese Lichtreflexion auf und Hammer. Oh, Wand. Wo ist die Toilette?
hier sind all meine Träume und Hoffnungen. Boah, ey. What the... Das ist ja cool. Geil. Warte. Das ist ja cool. Oh, schade. Wow. Okay, hier ist der Boden wieder... Ich will jetzt nicht sagen billig oder schäbig, aber anders.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
Boah, ey, 5 Monate. Möbius Flug. Augen schließen? Okay. Und jetzt? Wow, super. Augen schließen und Text. Intelligenzbestien.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Okay. Blind, blind, blind. Blind, blind. Sind alle blind? Da ist die Wahrheit. Ich kann nicht mehr. Okay.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
Krass, okay.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Hallo? Oh. Oh. Ist immer die gleiche Insel.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for? Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on. You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Krass, ey. Das wird ja immer verrückter.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering.
Ey, wenn wirklich so am Ende war.
This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so
Oh,
wrong.
das meint
I needed more than I had ever needed anything
Person.
for this to stop. But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
7 Monate. Mai 2011. Die Maschine. Ey. Wir versuchen brutal zu sein. Die Maschine nennt sich Coda, also er selbst. Okay. Die Presse. Ist das die Maschine?
And of course, it's the machine.
Er sieht sich selbst als Maschine. Du hast aufgehört, uns zu füttern. Kannst du dir überhaupt vorstellen, was die Leute da draußen mit mir durchmachen? Nichts. Krass, ey. Okay. Meine Freunde. Ich habe nichts Gutes mitzuteilen. Die Maschine will nicht zugeben, uns absichtlich geschadet zu haben. Doch, das spielt keine Rolle. Wir sind stärker, als sie meint. Lasst uns Vergeltung üben. Folgt mir, wir werden die Maschine zerstören. Okay, wieder die Bühne, aber nicht so mit der schönen Textur. Maschine. What? Coda, ich werde dafür sorgen, dass deine Arbeit hier stirbt. Ist es nicht das, wovon du dich fürchtest, ohne das, was du erschaffen hast, leben zu müssen, dich mit dir selbst
So now the
auseinanderzusetzen?
work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
Ich könnte jetzt alles zerballern. Ich falle durch.
So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
Okay. Runter mit der Waffe.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy, so beautifully, beautifully happy. So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
Okay. Also das letzte Spiel von ihm, von Coda. The Tower, also der Turm. Oh.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, The Tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
Ey, auch die Soundkulisse ist einfach nur... Puh. Krass. Wirklich, wirklich heftig. Ach,
This room
Scheiße.
actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press the Use key on your gamepad, and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Okay.
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze? The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
Also beeindruckend ist es allemal.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first two challenges and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that. Was I a failure for not understanding this game? I mean, I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why. I remember, it's June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time, and as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew, it wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't.
Die 3 Punkte, die mich auch gestört haben. Ey, total
I
verrückt
just
irgendwie.
felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left, and it felt somehow like I had failed. Where did I screw up?
Ey, die Spiegelung sieht geil aus. Lieber Davey, vielen Dank für dein Interesse an
I'm the
meinem Spiel.
reason that you stopped making games, aren't I?
Ich möchte
because of what I
dich
did.
bitte,
I poisoned it for you.
mich nicht mehr anzusprechen. Krass.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable.
Manchmal frage ich mich, ob du glaubst, ich mache diese Spiele für dich. Du bist mir dermaßen auf
And
die Pille
the
gerückt.
people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, it was... I felt good about myself. Finally. For a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Gäbe es eine Antwort, einen Sinn, würde dich das dann glücklicher machen? Würdest du aufhören, meine Spiele gegen meinen Willen anderen zu zeigen? Ihnen etwas zu geben, was du ihnen gar nicht geben solltest? Die eine Grenze zu überschreiten, die mich in Sicherheit hält? Ach, da hinten. Könntest du bitte aufhören, meine Spiele zu ändern? Hör auf, irgendwelche Straßenlampen reinzusetzen. Boah, ey, harter Thorax.
And then you stopped. and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
Wenn ich in deiner Nähe bin, wird mir sowas von schlecht. Du verlangst etwas, was ich dir nicht geben kann. Ich habe es einfach nicht. Es deprimiert mich nicht, wenn ich mal keine neuen Ideen habe. Diese Tiefs gehören einfach dazu. Die Tatsache, dass du mich für frustriert und gebrochen hältst, sagt mehr über dich als über mich aus. Ich weiß, du verstehst das alles noch nicht. Das ist in Ordnung, nicht mein Problem. Aber ich hoffe, dass es irgendwann Klick macht und du diesen ewigen Kampf endlich
I'm afraid
beendest.
that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
Und dann wirst auch verstehen, was ich meine. Sag nichts. Oh, das ist der schwarze Raum. Ich glaube, diesmal gibt es keinen Hebel. Ich wusste.
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. And I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
Epilog. Der Sprecher, der ist ja... Okay. Irgendwie so ein Bahnhof. Haupthalle. Hier sind Fernseher.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease. Solution.
Irgendwie tut mir der Sprecher so leid.
I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons. Even now, the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Das ist ja bedrückend, ey. Puh.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like. What now? I think I need to go. And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. And so I'm just gonna... Okay.
Krass, ey. Einfach nur krass. Vor allem, wie das angefangen hat. Sah es einfach aus wie so eine Collection aus unfertigen Spielen. Es fing ja mit Dust an, von Counter-Strike. Dann Gefängnis. Und man hat gemerkt, wie immer mehr instabil und depressiv der Programmierer wurde. Und sein Chef, Schrägstrich Freund, nicht mehr weiter wusste, wie er ihm helfen soll. Während sich dann der Programmierer irgendwie Luft in seinen Spielen verschafft hat. Und in seinem letzten Spiel einfach mal alles rausgelassen hat. So klassisch Burnout. Ja, das heißt ein klassisch, also kein Burnout ist klassisch. Das tut mir leid, so war es jetzt nicht gemeint, aber ja. Krass. Ich glaube, das passiert auch in der Gaming-Branche sehr, sehr oft. Also kommt sehr oft vor. Da gehen die Leute reihum kaputt. Durch Crunch. Und alles, was damit zu tun hat. Ja, wir laufen. Jetzt ohne Sprecher. Damit fing es ja an vorhin, im Großen und Ganzen. Entweder wir sterben oder wir fliegen hoch. Wir fliegen hoch. Wow. Krass, ey. Das nenne ich mal ein Labyrinth. Abgefahren, ey. Also da kann man sein ganzes Leben drin verbringen.
Turn back
4R.
You said, let me
Dieses Projekt wäre ohne die folgende Person nicht möglich gewesen.
Let me keep going. But the cave goes for miles and miles and miles. And you're so tired. But I know that you're strong. So turn back. Turn back.
Krass. Das war The Beginner's Guide. Ich muss sagen, einzigartiges Erlebnis. Es fing ja mit dem Intro an, dann diesem Shooter-Spiel rückwärts, wo wir nur rückwärts laufen konnten. Dieses Zylinderartige, wo es einfach nichts gab, die Treppe. Und dann fing es ja mit dem Rätsel an, dann wieder Slender. Und dann ging es ja immer mehr, dieses Gefangensein, eine Maschine, der gruselige Turm und dann der einzigartige Epilog. Krass. Also, was das Spiel vermitteln wollte, hat es eigentlich, denke ich mal, vermittelt. Arbeit kann einen kaputt machen. Ich hoffe, euch hat es gefallen. Es hat zumindest, was heißt, einen Spaß gemacht. Es ist interessant, immer solche Erfahrungen zu machen. Vor allem Spiele, die einen auch berühren, sage ich mal. Und ich würde mich freuen, wenn wir weiterhin solche Spiele bekommen und sie auch gemeinsam erleben können. Vielen Dank. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss.